What a strange species we are. In a universe that has existed for 13.8 billion years, amidst the swirl of galaxies and the dance of supernovae, here we stand hunched over small screens, worrying about Wi-Fi signals while ancient starlight pours into our atmosphere undisturbed. We suffer deeply in a world more technologically advanced than ever, yet somehow less connected than we've ever felt. We've mastered sending rovers to Mars, but struggle to look one another in the eye. And just when we believe we've tamed the cosmos with our mathematics and machinery, the universe vast, silent, and patient reminds us, you are still learning. On May 18th, the sky will whisper something extraordinary, not in words, but in the language it has always spoken. Motion, alignment, energy. We call it a celestial convergence, but that term, while poetic, barely touches the surface of what's truly unfolding above. Imagine a stage where 6 of our solar system's key players, Mars, Venus, Uranus, Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon's north node, are choreographed in an unlikely cosmic configuration. They do not align because we wish them to. They align because of physics. Gravitational pulls, orbital mechanics, elliptical trajectories spanning tens of millions of years, all playing out a ballet so intricate that to witness such a harmony on this scale in this lifetime, well, the odds are astronomically low. But before we reach for meaning, let us understand the mechanism. May 18th is not a prophecy. It is not a signal from the heavens meant to guide your personal horoscope. It is a moment where the cold logic of orbital dynamics becomes a living poem. Mars, the planet of kinetic energy, the Roman god of war, collides metaphorically, though not physically, with the North Node, a mathematical point that represents evolutionary growth in astrology, but in astronomy is nothing more than a coordinate. Their meeting at 19 degrees in Pisces is not a magical event. It is an intersection. And yet, and this is where science humbles itself, even such intersections have ripple effects. To call Mars the planet of action is a metaphor, not a measurement. But when you pair this metaphor with mass psychology, with global behavior, with the strangely synchronous nature of collective human experience, you begin to ask, why do periods of planetary alignment often coincide with cultural, political, or environmental turning points? Is it coincidence, correlation, or is it a mirror, not one that changes us, but one that reveals us? At the same time, on the other side of our solar theater, Venus, the soft symbol of beauty and connection, joins Uranus, the icon of disruption and rebellion, both stationed at 29 degrees Aries. Again, no magic, just mathematics, but mathematics has always been the universe's preferred form of poetry. Uranus, the first planet discovered with a telescope, taught us to see beyond the naked eye. And when it aligns with Venus, we are not promised romantic disruption or societal shakeups, but we are invited to reflect, how stable is what we love? How fragile are our attachments when the ground beneath them moves, even slightly? Now let's widen our scope. The Sun and Jupiter meet in Taurus at 3 degrees. The Sun, source of all life, of photosynthesis, of warmth, of time itself. Jupiter, the gas giant, a planet so large it protects Earth by absorbing incoming comets and asteroids like a gravitational bodyguard. When the two draw near, their combined luminosity does not create visible spectacle for the naked eye, but it does shift energy, not in the mystical sense, but in the literal sense. The Sun dominates the electromagnetic spectrum. Jupiter, with its magnetic field so immense it could fit all other planets within its borders, creates waves we still don't fully comprehend. Their closeness reminds us that expansion, the domain of Jupiter, must always bow to the reality of energy, the dominion of the Sun. So why does this convergence matter? Because it gives us an excuse, a reason to look up, a reason to pause our lives that are increasingly tangled in digital noise, and remember that we live on a rotating rock suspended in the vacuum of space, orbiting a star that will one day die. And everything we build, every empire, every ideology, every social media post, is fleeting against the backdrop of cosmic time. But don't mistake that truth for nihilism. In fact, it's liberation. For when you realize how vast the universe is and how small we are within it, you begin to choose differently. You speak kinder words. You waste less time. You seek more wonder and fewer distractions. And now, to the part many hesitate to say aloud, could this celestial alignment have actual, tangible effects on Earth? The scientific answer is not directly. The gravitational force of Mars on your body is less than that of the chair you're sitting on. But indirect, that's another matter. The moon, for example, drives tides not because it's mystical, but because it's consistent. The sun's solar flares can disrupt communication satellites and trigger auroras not because of magic, but because of charged particles. So when multiple celestial bodies align, is there a measurable spike in geomagnetic activity? Sometimes, yes. Does that affect human behavior? Possibly, but correlation is not causation. Still, the fact that we even ask the question tells you something profound. We want to feel connected to the sky. This is where science and soul quietly shake hands. Not because one needs the other, but because humans are both rational and poetic beings. We split atoms and write sonnets. We decode the genome and still cry at sunsets. This celestial convergence, whether it alters your blood pressure or not, certainly has the power to shift your perspective, and that might be the most powerful transformation of all. Some will ask, is this a harbinger of doom? A prelude to upheaval? Well, the same alignment that could destabilize markets or trigger protests could just as easily catalyze invention, cooperation, and awakening. It's not about the sky's intention, it's about how we respond. You see, the universe doesn't send messages, it sends physics. We are the ones who attach meaning, and therein lies our responsibility. If you look up and see chaos, you will act in fear. If you look up and see potential, you will act with courage. And perhaps that is the quiet gift of May 18th. Not prophecy, not prediction, but permission. Permission to realign our own lives with something larger, to consider what in our personal orbit needs recalibrating, what relationships have become stagnant, what ideas need upgrading, what dreams have we postponed, waiting for a better time, forgetting that time is simply the measure of motion between stars. This convergence is not about destiny, it's about decision. Just as the planets obey gravity, we must obey awareness. The awareness that every choice we make sends ripples into the world around us, a world more interconnected than ever, and yet starved for depth, for reflection, for awe. May 18th is a cosmic reminder that even in the age of algorithms, the sky still writes its own code. And it is written not in JavaScript or Python, but in hydrogen and helium, in magnetospheres and rotational axes. To witness this convergence is to remember that we are stardust, observing stardust, trying to make sense of the song. We're all a part of a song that began before we had ears to hear and will continue long after we're gone. So when you look up on that night, don't just admire the symmetry. Ask yourself, what kind of alignment do I need in my own life? What inner chaos needs its own gravity? What truth, long orbiting the edges of your awareness, needs to be pulled into focus? The sky isn't giving you answers. It's giving you a question, the same question it's always asked. Now that you know where you are in the universe, what will you do with your moment in time? We are not the center of the universe. That realization once shattered egos and rewrote textbooks. Copernicus dared to suggest it, Galileo was punished for defending it, and now it lives quietly in our school curricula, often repeated, rarely absorbed. But May 18th reminds us again. It says, look, the sky does not orbit you, you orbit it. And what a gift that is. Because in not being the center, we are invited to explore the edges. And at the edges, the most interesting truths are always found. You see, it's easy to believe that nothing truly matters when you realize how vast the cosmos is. Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars. But the more scientific view isn't that nothing matters. It's that everything does. Every hydrogen atom fused in a stellar core. every photon that took 8 minutes to travel from the sun to warm your cheek, every orbital equation that governed where Jupiter stood on the night you were born. These are not coincidences, they are conditions. And you were born into them, not above them, not apart from them, inside them. On May 18th, this cosmic ballet reaches a crescendo, and for a brief moment, we have front row seats to the silent orchestra of orbital mechanics. But the music only plays if we're willing to listen. The human brain evolved under these skies, long before telescopes could reveal their structure. We use stars to navigate oceans and to tell stories. Ancient civilizations built temples aligned to solstices and equinoxes, not because they worshiped the sky, but because they understood something we've begun to forget. The universe is not separate from your life, it is your life. So when Mars charges forward and meets the North Node in Pisces, ask yourself, where am I charging forward blindly? Where is my momentum misaligned with my mission? Pisces, whether or not you believe in astrology, has always been associated with dreams, intuition, and the sea metaphors, yes, but powerful ones. What inner ocean have you refused to sail simply because the waves looked unfamiliar? Because the map was incomplete? Every planet is a myth and a measurement. Mars is iron in your blood, in the soil, in the dust of stars, and it is also impulse. And so, again, the question is not what will the planets do to you, but what will you do when you see them? Now look to Venus and Uranus. One symbolizes order, the other chaos. One draws lines in gentle brushstrokes, the other flips the canvas. And yet, they meet not in contradiction, but in possibility. When disruption and beauty align, you don't get apocalypse. You get art. You get revolution. You get the symphony of new values rising from the ashes of the old. And in Aries, the sign associated with beginnings and fire, that revolution won't ask for permission. It will light the match. Are you ready to burn what no longer serves you? Or are you still clutching it for comfort, hoping the sky will decide for you? Then there's the Sun and Jupiter, basking in the earthy steadiness of Taurus. Two celestial bodies of brilliance, one a giver of life, the other a bringer of growth. When they align, they don't whisper, they announce. But this announcement is not shouted from rooftops, it hums in your bones. It asks, where are you ready to expand? And more importantly, what must stay still for that expansion to mean anything? We often forget that Taurus is not just the symbol of stubbornness, it is the guardian of sustainability. And Jupiter, though expansive, can easily become bloated with ambition. So the convergence here teaches balance. Growth without grounding is inflation. Optimism without discipline is delusion. And a vision, no matter how noble, needs roots if it hopes to survive the winds of time. These planetary alignments do not promise you anything. They simply occur. They do not wait for your readiness. They do not pause for your understanding. But if you do the work, the inner physics of attention, awareness, responsibility, they can reflect truths you've long buried beneath routines and notifications. Because this is the irony of cosmic events. The universe is silent, but it speaks. It speaks in patterns. It speaks in contrast. It speaks in silence that dares you to ask better questions. Why now? Why here? Why you? Not in a self-centered way, but in the only way that matters. Because if not you, who? And if not now, when? You are a participant in this universe, not an accident within it. And as participants, we are given agency, the ability to respond. Responsibility. And here lies the great human challenge, to take what the stars do by gravity and replicate it by choice. Planets do not resist their orbits. They do not complain of the distances or demand shortcuts. They move in silent obedience to the forces that govern them, but we possess the gift and burden of free will. And with that comes chaos and creation. Perhaps that's what May 18th is about. A reminder that convergence doesn't just happen in the sky, it must happen within us. The alignment of thought and action, of belief and behavior, of science and soul. Because what good is knowing that Mars aligns with the node if you cannot align your values with your actions? What good is understanding celestial symmetry If your life remains fractured by contradictions, you refuse to examine. The ancients once looked to the heavens for omens. Eclipses terrified them. Comets were warnings. But today, we understand that these are natural events, predictable, measurable, explainable, and yet they still move us. Because understanding does not kill wonder. In fact, it amplifies it. To look at a planet and know its chemical composition and still feel awe, that is the pinnacle of human experience. That is the intersection of left brain and right. That is where Neil Armstrong stood when he looked back at Earth and said, "It suddenly struck me that that tiny pea, pretty and blue, was the Earth." I put up my thumb and shut one eye, and my thumb blotted out the planet Earth. That same Earth is where you are now, breathing, listening, existing against all odds, and above you, an orchestra plays on. A convergence unfolds, unbothered by politics, unfazed by economics, unconcerned with our trivial divisions. It reminds us, as it always has, that there is a larger rhythm, one we didn't invent, one we can't control, but one we can join if we learn to listen. So as May 18th approaches, I invite you not to fear it, not to mythologize it, but to meet it. Meet it with eyes wide open. Meet it with humility. Meet it as a citizen of the cosmos, no more and no less than the dust from which you came. Look up, not for answers, but for perspective. The sky won't change your life. But you might, once you remember that you are made of it. Most people don't look up anymore. And if they do, it's not to contemplate the stars, it's to check the weather app, or perhaps glance at a drone overhead. We've built cities so luminous we no longer see the night sky clearly. We've drowned out the light of stars with the artificial glow of convenience. And yet, the universe has not gone anywhere. It waits patiently beyond the haze of distraction, reminding us that it's still spinning with or without our permission. That's the real power of May 18th. Not the arrangement of celestial bodies themselves, but the opportunity they give us to pause, to look up, and more importantly, to look inward. You see, in astrophysics, we talk about gravitational influence, about how massive bodies pull on one another. Well, so do people. So do ideas. So do moments in time. And every once in a while, those moments align a convergence. And if we're aware, if we're attentive, we can harness that alignment to shift something fundamental within ourselves. In space, alignment is a function of physics. On Earth, alignment is a function of will. Let me explain. Imagine two celestial bodies moving on different orbital paths. Over time, through their own momentum and gravitational interactions, they drift closer until for a brief window they align. That window is called a conjunction. And in that brief window, even though nothing collides, the energy changes, trajectories adjust, outcomes shift. Now apply that metaphor to your life. What if this alignment in the sky mirrors an alignment waiting to happen in your own story? Maybe your ideas and your actions, maybe your purpose and your profession, maybe your need for meaning and your daily choices. Maybe it's time, not because the stars said so, but because you finally noticed. Cosmic events like these serve as mirrors, not maps. They don't show you where to go, they show you what you've been refusing to see. The tensions you've been tolerating, the dreams you've been delaying, the truth you've been orbiting but never landing on. If planets can find harmony in chaos, perhaps we can too. If gravity can pull worlds into elegant choreography, perhaps discipline can pull our habits into coherence. If stars, separated by light years, can align to create patterns we admire from Earth, maybe our scattered intentions can converge to form a life that is equally worthy of awe. You've probably heard of the term synchronicity. It's when things seem to align meaningfully without a clear causal connection. Science doesn't claim to explain all of it. But what it does say is this: when systems are sensitive enough, even a small change in initial conditions can lead to massive transformations. It's called the butterfly effect. A butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil can theoretically cause a tornado in Texas. Now imagine what a shift in your awareness could ripple into across your relationships, your work, your community. That's the paradox of the cosmos. The grandest events often begin with the smallest motions. Jupiter didn't form from a bang, it formed from dust. Gravity, relentless and patient, gathered particles over eons until something magnificent emerged. So don't discount small efforts. Don't dismiss subtle changes. They're not nothing, they're beginnings. Now consider the other side of this convergence, the one we're less inclined to talk about. Tension, friction, collapse. Not all alignments are harmonious. Sometimes pressure builds. Sometimes tectonic plates shift. Sometimes systems break before they reorganize. Look at stars. Before a star dies, it expands, it grows brighter, then it implodes. And in that implosion, that death, it seeds the universe with heavier elements: iron, carbon, oxygen, the ingredients for life. In other words, destruction is not the end, it's the delivery system for renewal. So if your life feels like it's shaking, if things are breaking, don't panic. Ask, what am I being asked to release? What truth have I outgrown? What identity is no longer aligned with who I'm becoming? It's no coincidence that Uranus, the planet of disruption, is active in this alignment. It's a reminder that sometimes evolution doesn't knock, it detonates. And Venus nearby suggests that this detonation might occur in places we hold sacred love, beauty, our sense of value. But again, it's not punishment, it's physics. It's entropy giving way to rebirth. A reminder that what breaks wasn't meant to last in the form it held. The raw material, however that is eternal, it gets recycled, reimagined, reborn. Just as the atoms in your body once belonged to stars, your suffering too can be alchemized into light if you choose to learn from it. And that, more than anything else, is what this convergence offers: choice, a celestial nudge toward agency. Not fate, not prophecy, but participation. An invitation to recalibrate, to realign, to return to the deep truth that we often lose in the noise, that you are not a spectator of this universe. You are a function of it, a contributor, a consequence, a creator. So what will you create? A better relationship with the people around you? A truer connection to the work you do? A deeper curiosity about the mysteries you've ignored because they didn't fit neatly into a to-do list? You see, people often ask what the point of astronomy is. Why study planets that are billions of miles away when we haven't solved the problems right here on Earth? And to that I say, the study of the cosmos is not a distraction from life, it is a perspective on it. When we understand how planets orbit, we better understand how systems interact. When we comprehend the life cycle of stars, we learn about the cycles of death and rebirth in nature, in civilizations, in ourselves. So, yes, look up on May 18th, watch the sky with the eyes of a scientist and the heart of a philosopher. Let wonder replace cynicism. Let curiosity interrupt your assumptions. And remember that this universe, this spectacular unfolding of energy and matter, does not revolve around your worries, but it does include them. Because in the end, the story of the cosmos is not just the story of stars and galaxies, it's the story of you, a conscious collection of atoms, daring to ask, what does it all mean? And perhaps that's the most profound alignment of all. Not Mars with the North Node, not Venus with Uranus, not the Sun with Jupiter, but the alignment of mind, heart, and action when you finally live as though you belong to the universe you've always been a part of. So ask yourself, not just on May 18th, but every day that follows, am I aligned or am I simply spinning? Alignment is not the default state of the universe. It's the exception. Most things in the cosmos move in tension, in imbalance, in asymmetry. Planets wobble, galaxies collide, moons drift. Entropy rules. But every once in a while, there's order. Fleeting, improbable, perfect, and it reminds us that harmony, though rare, is possible. That's what May 18th is. A brief moment of interplanetary choreography where the chaos steps into rhythm. A reminder that even in a disorderly universe, balance is not impossible, it's just hard-earned. Now ask yourself, what would alignment look like in your life? Not perfection, not control, but flow, integrity. the kind of quiet coherence where what you think, what you say, and what you do are finally orbiting the same gravitational center. This is not a mystical idea. It's system science. In biology, coherence means your heart and your brain are syncing in rhythm. In engineering, coherence describes waves reinforcing each other instead of canceling out. In physics, it's constructive interference. In people, it's peace. Inner coherence isn't just a spiritual metaphor, it's a measurable state where the system works better, lasts longer, and performs with elegance. And like planetary alignments, your own coherence doesn't last forever. It has to be cultivated, protected, revisited. Because just as gravity pulls planets toward balance, life pulls humans toward distraction. We are tugged by 1,000 invisible forces past regrets, future anxieties, cultural expectations, digital noise, all of it, adding friction to the orbit of our attention. But here's the thing, the universe doesn't eliminate chaos to create beauty. It orchestrates it. Saturn's rings are made of shattered moons. The elements in your body, iron, calcium, carbon, were forged in the explosive deaths of massive stars. Even the Earth's stability relies on the gravitational chaos of other planets. Harmony doesn't require simplicity. It requires intelligent arrangement. And so maybe your life doesn't need less stress, fewer problems, or some utopian order. Maybe it needs a new arrangement, a gravitational reset, a clearer understanding of what you truly revolve around. Because just like the solar system, you cannot revolve around everything. Try and you'll spiral. Every orbit has a center. What's yours? That question matters now more than ever. Because while the planets perform their silent dance in space, here on Earth, we face a different kind of convergence, not of celestial bodies, but of human crises. Climate, technology, inequality, ideology, all accelerating, all intersecting. Our social systems are reaching points of tension that resemble astrophysical pressure zones, the kind that precede either collapse or expansion. We are, quite literally, in a convergence of consequence. The same way that tectonic plates build pressure until they quake, our world is showing signs of accumulated stress. Ecosystems fraying, democracies wobbling, economies stretching like unstable orbits. And like celestial bodies, these systems do not reset themselves. They require intervention, course correction. They require people, individuals like you, who are willing to become agents of alignment rather than victims of momentum. This is where the science becomes personal. Because as observers of the cosmos, we're often awed by its scale. But as participants in the cosmos, we must also be awed by our responsibility. You are not separate from the universe, you are made of it. And the same laws that govern galaxies govern you. Energy moves through you. Gravity grounds you. Motion defines you. And just like stars collapse inward under too much pressure, so too will societies and souls if they are not allowed to release, reform, evolve. And evolution, contrary to myth, is not about dominance. It's about adaptation. It's about finding new configurations in response to new conditions. That's what the planets do. That's what life has always done. And now, more than ever, it's what we must do. So let May 18th be more than an astronomical curiosity. Let it be a model, a metaphor, a message. When Mars aligns with the North Node, remember, action must align with direction. Force must meet purpose. Ask yourself, what am I doing with my energy? What am I fighting for or against without asking whether the battle's even mine? When Venus conjuncts Uranus, consider beauty is not the absence of disruption. Sometimes it is disruption. Sometimes the most beautiful thing is the breaking of old patterns, the audacity to say, this is no longer working. Innovation, after all, is simply love refusing to stagnate. And when the sun meets Jupiter, don't just think of light. Think of vision, of how brightness without wisdom becomes arrogance, and wisdom without humility becomes blindness. Together, they can either illuminate a path or burn it down. This is the architecture of convergence. Every body, every force, every tension in relationship. Not randomness, not perfection, but purposeful complexity. And If we learn to think like the universe, maybe we can begin to live like it expansively, coherently, and with reverence for the delicate interdependence of all things. Because ultimately that's what this is about. Relationship between stars and space, between energy and matter, between cause and effect. And perhaps most critically, between you and everything you touch. You may never touch Jupiter, but your actions today could change the life of someone 1,000 miles away. You may never walk on Mars, but the way you respond to pressure with panic or with poise sets off ripples through your family, your work, your culture. You are a force, not a cosmic accident, but a cosmic participant. You are not just in the system, you influence it. And so we return to the question, the one the universe has always asked, not with words, but with movement. Now that you know where you are, what will you do with it? Because May 18th will come and go. The planets will continue on their paths. The sun will rise. The tides will move. But you are not predetermined. You have agency. Will you just admire the alignment, or will you become aligned? Not once, not perfectly, but consciously, daily, with the courage to change course when needed, and the humility to know that even the stars are still evolving. We often speak of time as though it's ours. My time, our generation, this moment in history. But time does not belong to us. We belong to it. Just as Earth belongs to the sun's gravity, just as light belongs to the speed it cannot exceed. And so, as we approach the end of this rare celestial convergence, it's worth asking not what time it is, but what kind of time this is. Because this is not just a historical moment, this is a transitional one, a bridge, a junction in human evolution that will never come again in quite the same configuration. And it's not because of the planets, but because of us. Never before have we had this kind of technological reach combined with this level of emotional confusion. We are sending probes to the edge of the solar system while struggling to sit silently with our own thoughts. We are mapping galaxies, and yet we are often lost within ourselves. But here's what the stars teach us. You don't have to have all the answers to move forward. The sun doesn't know the details of its orbit, it simply follows gravity. Electrons don't strategize their movement around nuclei, they respond to charge. And galaxies don't ask permission to collide, they simply do. And out of that chaos, new stars are born. In the same way, we don't need to understand everything to make better choices. We just need to align ourselves with what is true. And that truth, grounded in science and confirmed by every cosmic observation, is this. Everything is connected. We are made of star stuff, literally. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your teeth, the oxygen in your breath, all were forged in the belly of ancient stars that died long before Earth was born. You are not on the universe. You are in it. You are of it. Which means that every action you take, every thought you cultivate, every word you speak ripples. Not in a mystical way, but in a thermodynamic, information-based, chaos theory-confirmed way. You are part of the system, and the system is evolving. So the question becomes, will you evolve with it or resist it and fracture? May 18th celestial alignment is not a prophecy, it's a pattern, a probability, a brief window into cosmic harmony that mirrors what's possible for us if we choose coherence over contradiction, clarity over confusion, responsibility over reaction. Because here's the final truth. The universe doesn't need us. Stars will burn. Galaxies will collide. Entropy will increase. The cosmos is not waiting for our permission. But something rare has happened here on Earth in this thin layer of atmosphere at just the right distance from just the right star with just the right chemistry to permit conscious life. And out of all the atoms and arrangements across time, you are here listening to this. Not randomly, but precisely. The odds that you exist as you are now are so small, they're functionally zero. And yet, here you are, which means your presence is not an accident. It's a phenomenon. It's a singularity. And the most responsible thing you can do with that miracle is participate in it fully. So as May 18th arrives, don't just look up, wake up. Wake up to the staggering luck of your existence. Wake up to the systems that have brought you here. biological, astronomical, technological, societal, and decide, will I be at passive orbit or will I choose to steer? This convergence won't come again in exactly this way. Neither will you. Use it, reflect, realign, restore, recommit. Not to superstition, not to fear, not to fantasy, but to something far more powerful and far more real. The pursuit of truth, the expansion of perspective, the stewardship of a planet, and the conscious evolution of a species, humble enough to know it is made of dust, but brave enough to imagine it can become light. That is what May 18th offers you. The chance to step not into prediction, but into participation. The universe is unfolding with or without you, but it is better with you, especially if you choose to rise with it. Thank you for looking up, and may you never look away again.